right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your week, to attend this latest bootcamp session, co-managed IT services. This is part two to a bootcamp that I started last week on co-managed IT services. The whole idea of this bootcamp series is if you're thinking of moving up market, going after the larger organizations that have internal IT department, how do you build programs to take to market? How do you price them? That's what we covered in part one last week. And then this week, we're talking about now that your programs are built, you have them priced, what's the go-to-market strategy? How do we take them to the market so that you can win your first set of customers? So if you happen to have missed last week's and you were hoping to hear about top programs and how do you price them, I'm not going to be covering that today. That was in last week's, but I do have copies of the recording if you are looking to get a raw version of it. It is in with marketing at the moment. They'll get it cleaned up, they'll get it edited, and then it'll get thrown up into Enable You probably in a couple of weeks or so. But if you are looking for that initial recording, just let me know and I can get it over to you. For anyone that hasn't attended any of my boot camps in the past, my name is Stephanie Hammond. I am the head nerd here at Enable that's responsible for all things sales and marketing related. You can see my contact information there on the screen. I'm on LinkedIn, my email is there, so never hesitate to reach out. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. I do have everyone on mute. That's just to maintain call quality. But if you have any questions as we're going through the material today, don't hesitate to put them into the question panel. I will do my best to answer as many of the questions live as I can. If for some reason I'm not able to address your question live, please note that I will look at it and I do commit to getting an answer back to you probably tomorrow because this will probably take me, a couple of hours this afternoon. So, but I do commit to getting an answer back to you. This session is being recorded. Reason being that if you attended this session previously, I've made a lot of updates to it since the last time. So a fresh new version of this bootcamp is going to be recorded. It will get cleaned up by marketing, and then it will get added on to Enable You as well in a couple of weeks. All right, so as I said, this is a follow-up to last week's co-managed services. Again, if you're looking for a copy of top programs, how do you price them? Let me know, I can get that information over to you. But as I said, this is part two because now we want to talk about how do you take your programs to market? Because co-managed IT services, it's going to continue to be one of the biggest growth drivers for MSPs, and we want to help our partners capture a lot of that market for themselves. So what are we going to cover off in today's session? It took me about a couple of hours this morning to get through the material. There will be a 1 hour break about halfway through so we can stretch our legs, get a refill of our coffee or our beverage of choice. But what are we going to cover today? We're going to be looking at the 7-step process around how do you build a go-to-market strategy. Now, I'm going to be applying it to your co-managed services, but there's nothing to say that you can't take what we're going to be talking about today and apply it to any other marketing campaign or marketing directive that you may be thinking of implementing. So through this process, we're going to talk about the ideal client profile, the ICP, for co-managed clients, what kind of companies are the best fit for co-managed. We're going to be reviewing the top problems facing these larger organizations today and how you can use these struggles that they're experiencing to create your own key messaging and your value prop statements that you can use within your sales and marketing outreach. Then we're going to be talking about developing your campaign, selecting the right marketing channels that you can use to help move your prospects through the marketing and sales funnel. For this, I have developed a co-managed services event in a box as a type of campaign, as one option to help generate awareness, jumpstart the co-managed line of business. We'll go through what's included in that event in the box campaign and how you can use it to assist again with your marketing and sales efforts. Then we're going to go through some of those common objections that your sales team may hear as you begin promoting your co-managed services. I'm going to be focusing in on just one aspect, which is the MDR. Last week we talked about how you can, we used the Enable MDR product that we just launched, but how you can take that whole service and build a whole co-managed campaign around it and a program around it, because I'm very excited. It's a very easy product to do that. So we're going to continue with today's session, and everything that we're going through in the 7-step process, I'm going to apply it to, as an example, if you wanted to go to market and promote a co-managed MDR service. So that's a managed detection response service. So you're going to probably hear some objections as you start speaking to IT directors, CTOs about a potential MDR service. So we'll review some of those objections and how you can potentially answer, respond back to some of those objections. And then lastly, just a quick review of some common key performance indicators that ideally you should be tracking to help measure, track, gauge the success of your co-managed marketing and sales campaigns so that you can make improvements and adjustments for next time. But ultimately, the goal of today's session really is, if you don't have any co-managed clients today, where and how do you start, right? What marketing, what sales strategies could you implement to help you develop a successful co-managed line of business for your MSP within the next 12 months? So level set, what do I mean, when I say go-to-market strategy? Like, what is this go-to-market strategy? A go-to-market strategy is your step-by-step plan for launching a new product or a new service, or it can be used to expand into a new market with an existing product or service. What it does, it really sets up your initiative for success because it allows you to kind of step back, reflect, and answer some key questions. First off, what product or service are you selling? And what unique problem does your product or service solve? Who is your ideal client? What are the pain points or the challenges that they're experiencing? Where will you sell your product or service? What markets do you want to pursue? And what does demand and competition look like in those markets? And then how are you going to reach your target customer and really create that demand? And so taking the time to really build out a go-to-market strategy is going to help to ensure that you're really considering all the different angles to avoid costly mistakes. This is different from a marketing plan. A marketing plan really details how you're going to execute the entire marketing strategy for your MSP. It's more of a longer term approach designed to help you achieve your overall marketing vision, your marketing objectives. The go-to-market strategy or the go-to-market plan, on the other hand, it's more tailored for a specific launch. It's focused on maybe a key campaign or a key activity over a prescribed period of time. So it is the most appropriate thing that we should be talking about when we're launching something like our new co-managed line of business that we just developed. So as I mentioned, there's 7 steps that we're going to be reviewing today in developing your go-to-market strategy. We're talking to it, we're applying it to co-managed, but as I said, nothing to say that you can't put it to any other campaign that you're going to be working on. And so, and I'm going to take this one step further and align it to a building an MDR, a managed detection response campaign that we reviewed last week. But anyway, looking at the 7 steps, step 1 really starts with defining our target audience by crafting what our ideal client profile, that ICP, looks like. So it involves clearly understanding, who your target audience is, because you want to ask yourself, who's experiencing the problems that my new co-managed services can help solve. Step 2, we have to do some homework here. We want to research our competition. We want to research our demand, because now that we've identified our target audience, we want to do some research to ensure that there's enough demand in our market and that there's not too much competition. Step 3 is all about identifying the problems that are being experienced by our target audience and how we can use these struggles to develop our value prop statements. In other words, how can your co-managed services, your MDR service, address your customers' most common pain points and solve the problems that are going to make their lives better. Step 4 is then all about creating the key messaging so that you can develop your value prop statements where you can outline the different benefits, the different outcomes your target audience can expect to receive by partnering with your MSP. And this is really based on the work that we've done in the previous step, working to identify your prospects' main purchasing triggers, their frustrations, so that you can highlight the real value behind your services. Step 5 is then determining what the marketing channels are going to be that you're going to use to bring awareness and create demand for your co-managed services, and how you're going to move potential customers down the marketing and sales funnel. Step 6 is all around creating that plan. The goal of your go-to-market strategy is to sell, and to sell your co-managed services and bring new customers into your MSP. So it is going to be essential to decide how are you going to sell into that target audience and turn that target audience into prospective customers for your MSP. And then lastly, we got to set some goals, right? These are your specific targets that you're aiming to achieve within your defined campaign deadline to help you measure how well your go-to-market strategy is working in bringing in new co-managed MRR into your MSP. Okay. So as I mentioned in today's bootcamp, I'm going to take this 7-step process and then I'm going to map it to building a go-to-market strategy for one co-managed services program that we did talk about last week. And that is, how do you build, promote, sell your managed detection and response, your MDR service, to larger organizations. And everything that I talked about last week, everything that I'm going to be talking about today, it's all in my latest co-managed digital playbook. This is brand new. I just got it out of content yesterday. So if you have an older version, because I am on version 3 now, so if you have a previous version, get rid of it. Download this one. I have a QR code there. I've also included it as a download on the GoToWebinar handout section, but just make sure that you're working off of this latest version, because all the material on managed detection and response, a lot of the material that I'm going to be talking about today is now incorporated into that playbook. And then another tool that I'm going to be referencing throughout today's bootcamp, it can also be found within the playbook, but I've also included it as a handout for you to download as well, is our go-to-market strategy planning guide. This is really meant to kind of help you document your thoughts, your ideas, basically acts as a summary for what we're going to be reviewing in today's session. All right, so let's start at step 1. Let's start by defining our target audience for our co-managed services. And this activity starts with developing our ideal client profile, our ICP, and we can use this, and it's important that we develop this because this is what we're going to be using to create our dream list of prospects that we want to reach out to and connect with when we start building up that marketing and sales strategy. So to ensure that we are targeting the right type of prospect, we do want to take a step back and really think about, what's that ideal client profile for the ideal co-managed client that we want to have as a client, so that we can then use that to develop our prospect list around. And the number one criteria when you're starting to build out your ICP for co-managed is the organizations that you're targeting, they have to have an internal IT admin person, someone on staff, like an IT director, an IT manager, a CTO. Like, there has to be someone in the company that you can collaborate with, who knows how the company network operates, who knows about the environment and all the different applications that are being used by the employees. If the prospect doesn't have a dedicated internal IT people, department, personnel on staff, then they would actually be considered kind of a traditional managed services client, where you would be speaking to them more about outsourcing their IT and the IT management to your MSP. So for the co-managed model to work, there has to be an internal IT resource on site, present in-house. Some other things to think about when we're defining our ICP for co-managed, we want to look at, the industries or verticals that we're going to be targeting. I have listed there some of the great vertical industries that are wonderful for co-managed: healthcare, manufacturing, larger legal firms, larger accounting firms, smaller banks, credit unions, financial institutions, professional services firms, really like any organization that has regulatory compliance standards that they have to adhere to. Great organizations to target. You'll notice I also have private equity firms listed there. Not really vertical, but partners that are delivering co-managed services have told me that PE firms are a really good audience to target, because with all of the M&A activity that is taking place and that they're involved in, a lot of times the internal tech team, they can't keep up with it all, and they can't scale fast enough. So they can benefit from some outside assistance and helping them stay organized and help with the integration of all the different networks together. I also have nonprofits listed there, and you might be a little surprised to see nonprofits on this list, but MSPs have told me that nonprofits are turning out to be a good industry to target, because during COVID, a lot of organizations, a lot of nonprofits, they went remote, and now that we're post-pandemic, they're opting to stay remote, or they've kind of moved into a hybrid structure. And so when you think about what nonprofits do, their job is to raise money. And nowadays, a large, significant part of their fundraising activities are done through social media, and they're done using, some form of social platform. And so nonprofits, they really are out there kind of in that digital world, and that makes them really easy targets for the threat actors to find. So they're becoming highly sought after by these threat actors, because they're known for not really taking their technology investments all that seriously. A lot of the times with nonprofits, because of budgets, what have you, their networks are kind of hobbled together, right? Just to kind of make it work. And so again, a really good market for MSPs to target, because they've gone remote, they've gone hybrid, they don't have these large lease payments like they used to do. So they are experiencing some cost savings. And now, you have these 100, 200, 500 employees in an industry that already typically experiences high turnover anyway, working out of home offices, and a lot of them have questionable technology. And there are some very large nonprofits out there, but I know MSPs don't typically like targeting nonprofits because of the pushback that they probably have received in the past. The nonprofit, director telling them, we don't have money for that, or we don't have budget for that. But I think a lot of times nonprofits just don't see the relevance when it comes to their technology. They look at it as being kind of that necessary evil and as that expense, not that strategic investment. But also MSPs, I don't think, have done a really good job of positioning their services to these types of organizations in the past either. Nonprofits, they are budgeting for large items, but they've just never really been educated to the point where they understand the potential risk impacts that, especially nowadays, cybersecurity can have in their business, especially since COVID. A lot of that risk, that cyber risk, is real for them. So MSPs should be going to nonprofits, and really any industry in the mid-market space, and saying, you know what, this is your risk level now, and how is your team managing it? Because with our co-managed services, we can offer to share some of that risk with you. And then looking at prospect size, generally when you are first starting to move into the co-managed space, start small. We don't need to go after the big elephants right away. MSPs that I interviewed probably a couple dozen for this boot camp. They all start off, kind of on the smaller end, targeting organizations in the 75, 80 to kind of 250, 300 employee range, because they felt it was important to stress test themselves, pressure test their team, their offerings, their service delivery processes, especially in the beginning, because you don't want to go out and start targeting organizations that are quite large at first until you are sure that you have all the kinks worked out. And then looking at geographical location, are you looking to keep your marketing and your customers local? Are you willing to broaden that geographical reach to maybe the county or the state level? And looking at the types of roles of the personnel that you're going to target. Are you going to target IT directors, CTOs, general admins, or are you going after more kind of C-suite, like CFOs, CEOs, that type of thing, or maybe both? And then are you going to be targeting new logos, or do you happen to have existing clients already that you could be targeting for co-managed services? Maybe you already have those mid or upper enterprise customers that you've done some one-off projects for in the past. Or, do you have some traditional MSP clients? Maybe they're growing. Maybe they're reaching that threshold where they might be starting to feel that they're outgrowing your services. So these customers might be starting to think that they may be better off ending the contract with you and just start to bring the IT function in-house. And if you do have customers like this, you definitely want to get ahead of these types of sentiments before you are caught off guard. Because again, in developing this bootcamp series and the different MSPs that I spoke with, many of the MSPs that I interviewed, because I asked them about their origin story and how did they get into co-managed, a lot of them did tell me that they kind of fell into the co-managed model. And for one of two reasons. One, it was because their customers were outgrowing them. They were feeling that they were no longer a fit for their traditional managed services line of business. So the MSP was actually forced to get creative to come up with another type of arrangement in order to try and save that relationship and keep that business intact. And the second reason was they realized that they already had some larger clients that they were working with, but it was more done on an as needed basis. And these larger customers just basically called when they needed something. And then the MSP went and, obviously helped them, but it was all done underneath a break fix type of arrangement at first. But then the partner kind of figured out a way to secure a monthly MRR payment from them. But neither of these cases did it really occur to the partner, to the MSP, that what they were doing for these larger organizations was technically classified as co-managed. So again, they kind of fell into the model. So if you're finding that you have these types of customer relationships, kind of within your own base, great customers to approach to help you build and refine a legitimate co-managed services model to help get you started. So it's kind of going after that low-hanging fruit, right? You already have that you already have that client relationship. We're just looking at a way now to better solidify that co-managed services model in either a new MRR, a monthly commitment from them, if maybe you're only doing time material work today, or use it to be proactive, get ahead of those growing customers who may have those sentiments that they think they no longer need you, and then use that co-managed model to help redefine and retain that relationship. Because when it does come time to expand your co-managed services and you want to start targeting new clients or new logos, you can use these existing clients obviously to help firm up your offerings, firm up your deliverables, refine your sales and marketing approaches. And they can really be your guinea pigs so that when you're ready to start targeting and going after net new clients, you kind of have all the processes and the kinks worked out. You can also use these clients to help with the marketing and sales promotion as well, because hopefully you can go back and use them to maybe develop new case studies that you can add to your website. You can ask them to write a review, post it on LinkedIn, Google, see if they have some pictures, or see if you can take some pictures with them that you can post to your LinkedIn feeds. That type of social proof, really important, it's really critical when you're starting, any sort of expansion type of activity. So if you, think about your existing base, reach out to those larger traditional managed services clients that you have today, book that executive business review meeting with them to, kind of see where they're feeling, see where their strategy is, where their growth plans are, and discuss some options with them before you get blindsided and you get told that they went and hired someone else internally without telling you. So then once you have your ideal, client profile, your ICP all defined, then we start using that to build out our prospect list of companies that we want to target, from a marketing and telesales perspective. So looking at some resources that you can use for this step, start with your CRM. See if there are any existing clients that might fit that model. Obviously your online job sites, your Indeed, your Glassdoor, your ZipRecruiter, your LinkedIn. See what companies are on there that are looking to hire additional techs, or maybe they're looking to hire additional security experts or network engineers, and then go talk to them about your co-managed approach and about, if they're security oriented or looking for security people, about your MDR service. Obviously LinkedIn, Google, help build out lists from there. The free version for LinkedIn works great, or if you have the investment in Sales Navigator, that just gives you a lot more filters to be able to create your base criteria. Chamber of Commerce, hopefully you're involved with your Chamber of Commerce, see what lists they have there, if it is your desire to stay local. Or a lot of local companies aren't necessarily on LinkedIn. I know in my neck of the woods, I live in a town that has about 100,000 people. We aren't using the social media. We aren't using any sort of LinkedIn. Everybody is very active. A lot of businesses in our area are very active in the Chamber of Commerce. So if you're kind of in that same area, there's a lot of benefit of being involved in your Chamber of Commerce. Looking at referrals, asking your existing customers if they know anyone that they can refer to you who might be interested in your co-managed approach. And then really doubling down on networking events and trade shows, attending shows where the target customers for the industries that you want to get into, where are they spending their time? And that's really what it comes down to, is putting yourself where your target customers are. Networking for co-managed is absolutely key because it is very much centered around building relationships, especially when you're trying to target internal IT. Their immediate response may be that you're trying to get me fired, you're trying to take over my job. And so it's only through networking and really kind of building those trusting relationships where you can kind of break down those barriers, dispel those myths, and hopefully, get in with maybe a co-managed patch to start. So just a screenshot of the go-to-market planning guide, just to kind of show you how you can use it to kind of document these ideas as we're going through each of these steps. Step 2, it's all about researching your competition and seeing who else might be offering co-managed services in your area, especially if we're using the MDR offering as our example today. Who in your area is offering a co-managed MDR in your area? And we're doing this because we want to make sure that there's enough demand and not too much competition in our area. But I think with anything co-managed right now, I don't see that being a problem. I think, co-managed services is still fairly new. I think it's still a lot of opportunity for MSPs there, but you still want to do your due diligence because you want to be aware as to who's in your area that you may be up against, as you start marketing and selling your co-managed services. So to help guide your research, so there's some questions you want to ask yourself as you are going through this, really looking at, what other MSPs in your area are also offering co-managed services, and trying to find out what type of co-managed services are they promoting. Are they doing patch? Are they doing backup? Are they doing help desk? Are they doing MDR? Are they doing endpoint security? Are doing password management, license management? And then how do their offerings compare to your offerings? Are they offering something that you're not? Are you offering something that they aren't? And then looking at the vertical markets, the role types, the geographic locations that your competitors are targeting, for their co-managed. And then how well is your competition doing at promoting their co-managed services? What kind of marketing and promotion activities are you seeing? And this will come from looking at their website, looking at their LinkedIn pages, really to see if they're even mentioning that they're doing anything with co-managed. And again, my feeling is that even if your competition it's still a relatively new service offering. MSPs are not the greatest at marketing in the first place. So I feel that if MSPs are delivering co-managed, they're likely not promoting that model, or they're not promoting it all that well. And so what I would, really do then, this gives you the opportunity that if your competitors are even offering co-managed, but they're not marketing it or promoting it online, fantastic opportunity for you to really do some due diligence, do some planning, and then that will allow you to kind of leapfrog over and above them and really help make your MSP stand out. And then I've combined step 3 and step 4 together because in order to decide what your key messaging is going to be, we first have to determine and identify what the potential problems or pain points are that our target audience is experiencing, because these are their purchasing triggers. And you want to make sure that our material speaks directly to these different purchasing triggers, because that's what's really going to motivate your prospect to want to reach out and chat with you. So how do we go about creating our key messaging, for anything really? We're going to apply this to the co-managed sales model. We're going to apply this to the MDR program offering. But again, this is something that can be applied to anything that any campaign that you want to take to market. But it involves taking a pain point, taking that challenge that's being experienced by your target customer, that purchasing trigger, and then pairing that pain point with a key benefit of your service, in this case, our co-managed service, and that will then translate into a positive outcome for the organization, putting the organization in a much better position than they were previously before they engaged in your services. And so this equation really basically becomes your value matrix, which you'll then be able to use to create your key messaging that you can then communicate in your sales and marketing material. And I'm going to continue with the MDR offering as my example for these steps. But again, there's so much more information contained within the playbook. If you are looking to take maybe a co-managed patch or a co-managed backup or a co-managed endpoint detection and response to market. I also have a lot of just generic messaging in there that just applies to the general co-managed model in general. So, but for MDR, we want to make sure that our messaging really emphasizes the top IT challenges and key security and organizational benefits the internal IT director can expect to achieve by partnering with your MSP for this service. And of course, the technical, all that back end, the logistical tidbits will be important as well, because we are dealing with another IT equal. But for the most part, you do want to kind of keep that messaging really focused on the benefits of your service, MDR in this case, and really provide and talk about how you're going to be able to help them. Because especially when it comes to MDR and security, it's no longer just an issue that the internal IT department needs to deal with, but cybersecurity compliances is a business risk that everyone within the company, starting at the leadership level, needs to manage. So step 3, let's start by identifying what kind of problems, those purchasing triggers that internal IT departments are challenged with when it comes specifically to security that your MDR service can help them resolve. I have 5 different purchasing triggers listed here. These can be used to really help spark the security and risk conversation with your prospect. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on a couple of them, but you can find the complete write-up for all 5 within that digital playbook. So one purchasing trigger that might cause an internal IT director to want to reach out and speak with you really centers around, increasing prevalence of cyber threats, the increase in sophistication of cyber threats. Because as cybersecurity threats continue to evolve, they are becoming more and more sophisticated, and they are becoming more and more prevalent. And so this is making it really difficult for a lot of internal IT departments to kind of keep up and manage it with any degree of confidence. So a key benefit of your MDR service that you can promote to help deal with this pain point is, with an MDR service, your MSP can really augment the internal IT team. Your team can assume the 24/7/365 security responsibility on the internal IT team's behalf. You can provide them peace of mind and a high level of business continuity in the event of a cyber attack. So putting this all together in terms of formulating some key messaging that we can use to help spark the conversation. Did you know that there's nearly 20 ransomware attempts made every second, and the average time between cyber attacks is only 39 seconds? Adversaries don't sleep. It's impossible to have eyes everywhere on everything at all time. When a cyber incident occurs, clock is your enemy. So leverage our SOC, leverage our team of cybersecurity experts to provide that round-the-clock protection coverage to ensure that your organization remains safe and secure. Another purchasing trigger that might cause internal IT to reach out really centers around the increase in compliance demands that are being placed on organizations. Companies in regulated industries are experiencing increasing compliance demands, and failure to comply, that can invoke some pretty punitive penalties, from the different regulatory bodies, depending on which one they fall under. But many internal IT departments, they're lacking proper security monitoring. They're lacking the reporting tool sets to really demonstrate and prove compliance should they be visited by auditors or should they be breached. And so another big benefit that your MDR co-managed program can provide, with the MDR service, enterprise companies can gain access to that compliance expertise if they happen to be missing it in-house, And you can step in with the proper security monitoring tool sets, with the reporting features that can really help them manage that compliance risk for them. So putting this all together in terms of some key sales and marketing messaging, how confident are you that your organization would pass its compliance audit should you be audited? Do you have the proper security monitoring and reporting tool sets in place where you can demonstrate improved compliance should a security incident occur on your network? Reminding them that compliance isn't an option. If you are part of certain types of industries, you have to comply. You can't opt out. So this is where you can say, look, partner with us to gain that compliance intel that you need to help your organization avoid costly punitive penalties. And then the last one I want to talk about, where the organization is maybe looking to hire or bring in the cybersecurity expertise in-house, but they're really having difficulties finding the qualified cybersecurity individuals that they need to kind of fill their requisitions. And so this is where, maybe you're scouring your LinkedIn job boards, Indeed, other online job boards, and you're really working to identify those companies that are attempting to hire and bring the security personnel in-house. So in these instances, you can reach out and really offer to speak to them about another viable option for their consideration. And so this is where you really want to kind of introduce that concept that they may be better off partnering with someone like you and your MSP than trying to build internally themselves. And with an MDR service, enterprise companies, they get the benefit because they can offload then that hiring, all that management stress, and they can save time and money and effort trying to find and hire skilled, qualified cybersecurity expertise that they may need. So instead, they can just partner with your MSP, and then you can manage all of that for them, the people, as well as the network and the cloud security as well. And so through partnering, the enterprise company can gain access to a whole pool of around-the-clock cybersecurity experts very quickly, very easily, and at a fraction of the cost of trying to build that team of experts themselves, especially if they are having difficulty finding the people, because they may have the budget, but if you can't find the people, you're still stuck. So marrying this together in terms of creating some key sales and marketing messaging, you can say something like, are you struggling trying to find and hire the skilled cybersecurity staff that you need to join your team to help you grow? Maybe consider offloading that responsibility to us, because by partnering with our MSP, you can quickly and easily gain access to an entire network of around-the-clock qualified cybersecurity personnel that can provide the safety and security that you're looking for, but at a fraction of the cost of having to build that team and manage that team of cybersecurity experts yourself. Okay. Looking at step 5, now we want to start thinking about what are the different marketing channels that we're going to use that'll be the most appropriate to help build awareness and promote our new co-managed MDR service offering. And so when I talk about marketing channels, these are really, what are the different types of content that you're going to use to create demand for your services, that you're going to use to kind of help move potential clients, down the marketing and sales funnel until they hopefully become new signed clients in the end. So we're thinking here like social media, page search ads, email campaigns, SEO optimized content, and this is really content that's you create that's going to help you ideally rank first on the pages of Google or as close to page 1 as you can. So it really involves creating content that has relevant keywords, the best type of phrases that can help potential customers find your website and get answers to their questions or problems that they need or that they're trying to solve. So it really does a great job of driving traffic to your website. So good pieces that can help drive traffic as long as the SEO is optimized correctly. Writing blogs, articles, white papers, ebooks, creating guides, posting videos, checklists, all that type of stuff is what people are looking for, and that's what they enjoy reading when you have a problem. Like I always think about when I'm trying to find something, if someone can give it to me in an ebook or a guide or a checklist or a bullet point, it just makes it so much easier to consume, and it's appreciated because then I realize or I recognize, they are thought leaders in that area, and they were able to provide something for value, and it was something that was useful for my business. And so that company is going to stay, you know, more top of mind than somebody else if I can't find them online, or if they don't have that kind of good, valuable, easily consumable content. Because again, the idea with all of this type of content is you want to hit a purchasing trigger, because that's what's really prompting your prospect to start researching solutions in the first place. So in the case of MDR, you know, one of the pain points that I had listed in that previous slide, you know, whether the CTO, the CEO, they're recognizing that they do have concerns about their current cybersecurity stance, and now they're looking for options on how to help solve those concerns. So anything that you can create that kind of touches on that and helps them solve that problem, they'll be interested in reading. And we can help you with a lot of that information for that initial promotion, that awareness building, because we have a lot of really good, useful material that's built into Market Builder. So here's my weekly plug, my bootcamp plug for Market Builder, because we're constantly building new material for Market Builder, and we actually have quite a bit of material in there around co-managed IT services if you haven't checked it out already. There is an existing campaign. It's more of a generalized campaign that you can use. We have sample emails, social posts, sales sheets, web plugins that you can use for your website. There's also a sales presentation that you can customize and use, as well as some call guides. But one piece within the general campaign that I want to highlight, and we actually have this for every campaign within Market Builder, and it touches on just what I said a couple of moments ago about SEO optimized content and how important it is when you are creating content. For it to be beneficial in driving traffic to your website, you want to make sure that you are incorporating the right keywords into the content that you're creating. And these keywords should ideally align closely to the types of inquiries or questions or the search criteria that your top prospects are searching on, you know, when they take it to Google. And so when you're working on your website updates, or, you know, anything that you're going to post to your website or social media to drive traffic, you want to make sure that you are putting in the right keywords and messaging. And so take a look at the key messages in the keywords section of the different Market Builder campaigns, because we provide samples there, and see how you can incorporate those words or those phrases into your material, so that when CEOs, IT directors are searching for supplemental support, again, ideally your web page hopefully pops up as close as it can on page 1 or on page 1. So just pulling out the keywords from the co-managed IT campaign out of Market Builder. Co-managed IT is the top one there. Personally, please don't use it. I think that's still an industry term that you and I use, but I think, you know, your prospects, if they're looking for this supplemental help, they may not understand what co-managed means. So I would prefer other words, messages, phrases than using that term co-managed, because again, that's between you and I. But looking at supplemental IT support, help for internal IT, augmentation, partnership, all of those types of keywords I think are really good words to incorporate into your website, into your blog posts, into your articles, if you are trying to attract prospects for co-managed. I also want to let everyone know that we have just updated Market Builder to include a whole bunch of new campaigns around how to market and sell MDR, specifically to mid and upper enterprise organizations. So within that campaign, again, we have sample emails, website landing pages, media posts. There's an MDR sell sheet. There's a playbook that you can see there. There's a PowerPoint presentation, there's battle cards. So again, we've really built out a fantastic campaign. If you are looking at going to market, selling MDR in a co-managed way, don't reinvent the wheel. We have all the verbiage there for you. So for anyone that's listening, if you're not sure what I'm talking about for Market Builder, as an Enable partner, you automatically get access to Market Builder. It is part of your partnership with us. So there's a QR code there for you to register, or maybe I'm reminding you that you haven't been in Market Builder for a while, and if you are looking at co-managed, if you are looking at MDR as a potential new campaign, Again, don't reinvent the wheel. We've done a lot of the work for you. Go in and take a look. And so the different marketing channels that you decide to use, again, it really depends on your target audience and where your customers are in their buying journey. So at the beginning, if we're trying to build that initial awareness, SEO optimized content works really well to direct, kind of prospects into kind of the top of your funnel who may not be familiar with their MSP or your services. So you may choose to write some blog posts, and for the case of security, you may write a blog post around the top benefits that a co-managed MDR service can provide and how it can help solve the top 3 security challenges facing internal IT departments today. Well, that's a little bit wordy. You can probably shorten that a little bit, but that idea, right? Because the goal of the blog post is hopefully someone from an internal IT or maybe a C-suite leadership, they may start researching supplemental IT support or security IT support, and when they take it to Google and they may come across this blog article, they may read the blog article, then they may go and check out the rest of your website, check out your about page on your website, because they want to see what your MSP is all about. They may go check your LinkedIn, and then maybe they go and start to decide they want to call you or fill out a form because they're looking to now speak to you. Or maybe if you have been speaking to potential prospects already, maybe they have some doubts, they have some questions, concerns around that co-managed model. So you may write or post some case studies, some video testimonials to your website or LinkedIn to kind of, again, dispel some of those common myths that seem to be circulating around co-managed, and use it to really showcase how a partnership with your MSP can be fruitful, can be beneficial to internal IT departments, because you're helping them to accomplish more. You're helping them to improve their overall compliance and their security posture without the need of having to go out and hire expensive new staff members. Or maybe you decide you want to offer a in-person event or a webinar because you want to educate prospects on what co-managed IT services are or what your MDR services are all about. So you can then bring them into your office, host them at a restaurant, provide refreshments, feed them, and use that time to really network and chat with prospects that you've identified that could potentially benefit from your co-managed model. And you may have heard this, reference in the past, like a lunch and learn. And I think lunch and learns are a underutilized form of marketing outreach. It's an underutilized form of networking. When we were at Empower, and I had brought a panel into my peer cohort, and we had 3 top performing MSPs there, anywhere between $30 and $70 million per year they're generating from their MSP business. And all of them are involved in doing events. One of the panelists, they actually do an event, gosh, did he say it's like once a month? It's at least 6 to 8 times a year that they focus on events, because they feel that it's such a wonderful sales tactic to help drive leads and cultivate prospects for their MSP. And so I really want to encourage you not to, if what I'm saying is scaring you, if you're like, oh gosh, Steph, I can never do that, don't overthink this. There's just some basics that you can put in place to really build a really good lunch and learn type of process. The first being, you just have to have that good list. And we kind of talked about that back in step 1. Developing your ideal client profile, developing your target audience, building out your top list of prospects, of customers that you would love to have as clients someday that you would prefer to do business with. The second piece is you need to have some good educational content. Your event's top priority is to educate and provide relevant insights where, again, we're addressing key challenges, key struggles that's facing our target audience. And we can talk about how we can help solve those problems and help them overcome those pain points. And this is basically all the work that we just did back in step 3 and step 4 of the go-to-market planning process. And so if you can demonstrate via your educational content that you understand these challenges facing internal IT departments today, and that you can offer options to help alleviate these challenges, attendees will be interested. I think it also helps to plant a few friendlies in the audience that can provide testimonials, insights, they can circulate among their guests. Maybe even have them take part in your presentation or put them up there on a panel discussion and have them really discuss how partnering with your MSP has really helped make their IT department, more productive, more efficient, more safe, secure, compliant. Because the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, peers will always listen to their peers first before they're going to listen to us, because obviously they know we're coming at them with an angle, right? They know we're trying to sell them something. So don't underestimate, the value that planting a few friendlies in the audience or putting them on stage and having them speaking about your relationship can have at an event like this. Also, never underestimate what a good venue with good food can do as well at fostering connections and building relationships with prospects. It is all about, especially if these are with organizations that don't really know you, we want to make a positive, really good, great first impression. And so promoting a nice venue that's known for their unique atmosphere, good food, that's also going to help improve your attendance rate as well, because people got to eat. And if you're inviting them to a well-known location, they likely will show up. And lastly, you also have to have a really good positive attitude around this. If you've never hosted a customer event before, be okay with the fact that it's not going to go perfectly the first time around. But don't let that stop you from planning a follow-up event. Repetition is what's really going to be key to generating success in doing something like events, right? Just recognize what went well, what can go better for next time, adjust your processes and your procedures and your tactics for the next one that you begin to schedule. And so to help with this endeavor, I did develop a co-managed services in a box. Basically everything that your MSP could use to help plan, promote, deliver a prospect event that's really designed to help educate prospects on the value of the co-managed model. So in the event in the box campaign, I've created a bunch of different pieces, customizable content, so it's all in Word, so that you can use this, put your own branding on it, put your own look and feel, but use it to invite your targeted prospects to an event and then manage the whole event process itself. So in the event in the box, I've included 4 different emails. The thinking is that you can send out 1 email a week over a 4-week period. That's really meant to encourage prospects to register for the event. I've also created some social media posts. You may want to post them to LinkedIn, Facebook, or use it as additional material to do more targeted emails. I've also included sample text if you were thinking you want to do a direct mail postcard, or maybe you want to send out an email or, like a newsletter. I think snail mail, there's still a need for it. I still think it's a powerful promotional mechanism. If you think about businesses and all the electronic mail that they get inundated with, I even think about my Outlook box, I think about my Gmail. There's so much in there, right? But I don't get a whole lot of mail these days. I'm lucky if I get a couple of pieces a month. Now, as a business, maybe you get a little bit more, but if somebody's mailed me something, it's a nice little postcard on a nice sturdy cardstock with a bright colors and good photography, I would give that some attention, especially if it's inviting me to something versus if I just got an email. So I include some sample text in there as well. Landing pages so that you give them a way to register for the event if you're taking them to your website. I've also created some different phone scripts for your sales team to use to help complement all the marketing efforts that you're doing, because marketing alone can only do so much in filling your venue. For better success, you are going to want to pair your marketing with a proactive outbound call campaign to personally invite organizations to your event as well. I've also included an updated sell sheet, a redesigned PowerPoint presentation that you can again customize to deliver and use at the actual event if you feel that you need to have one. And then some supplemental pieces. I've included an event planning guide, an event planning checklist to kind of help with the planning process, as well as an evaluation form that you can either distribute at the end of the event, or maybe you send it out post-event as a thank you email or as part of your thank you email, so that you can solicit feedback from your guests on what they thought went well, what improvements they think should be made, so that you can improve on this for the next time because there should be a next time. So again, in putting together this event in the box, I really tried to think of everything that would be useful to help you plan a customer event and get that off the ground, and really use that as a way to kickstart the co-managed model for you and hopefully get you a few quick wins. And that can all be found within the co-managed digital playbook, but it also can be found within the co-managed market builder campaign as well. All right, so as I said, I did promise a break. We're about halfway through, so we'll take a 5-minute break, stretch our legs, get a drink of water. We've gone through steps 1 through 5 so far. We're going to use post-break to review 6 and 7, which is where we're going to review the sales plan. We're going to review objections, review the different KPIs. So that will be in the back half. But let's take 5 minutes, take a break, stretch our legs, and we'll be right back. So I have it at 1:57 Eastern time. We'll see you in 5. Thanks. All right, let's get back into it. Hopefully everybody had the chance to stretch your legs, get drink of water. All right, so step 6 and step 7. So step 6 is all about creating that sales plan, because obviously, again, our goal is to sell our co-managed services contracts. So we do want to think about how we're going to sell into our target audience and turn that target audience of prospects into buyers. And so this is really where our sales strategy comes in. And this is why I think launching your co-managed services with something like an in-person event, it will work really well. And I think it'll be the easiest, because it will give who's ever doing your phone calls, whether you have an SDR team or whether it's yourself, or maybe you have other people that are doing it, but it will give those people, whoever's doing the proactive calling, a purpose and something to focus on, because their outbound call campaigns for the time being can be centered around generating interest in your event and populating that event. So it gives them something really tangible and almost fun to promote. And so that's why I did include some sample call scripts in the Event of the Box campaign to kind of help with that activity. And so just building a simple sales plan around this that you can put in place can be really centered around populating that event. So the idea here is that, you as a group, whether it's the business owner, the sales leadership, sales team, SDRs, whoever's going to be involved, together you create your prospect list of companies and people that you would like to invite to the event. This goes back to step 1, where we talked about identifying your target audience and your ICP. And then whether it's your SDRs or whoever, they'll work the phones, invite your prospects to the event. And then the week leading up to the event, you want to make sure that you're calling back into all of those registrants, remind them of the event, answer any questions that they may have, and just really make sure that they're still planning on attending. And then at the actual event itself, this is where your sales team can really start circulating, right? Introduce themselves to the prospects, do that whole networking thing, right? Because the goal is for them to go and book follow-up appointments, ideally no later than 1 week post-event. And then it would be at that meeting, that follow-up meeting, where the sales reps would do, just your regular discovery, because you need to see if there's a good fit between their organization and your MSP. And then you might do a subsequent meeting, because maybe there might be an assessment that has to be done or some initial more in-depth discovery work. But if there is a good fit, then this is where you, as the MSP owner, you help draft and present the proposal at that closed meeting, along with the sales rep, and then you work to determine, what the implementation plan is going to look like. So it's a pretty basic and straightforward sales plan. I think the hardest part really is going to be creating that list of people that you want to invite, and then getting people actually to attend. But again, everybody needs to eat. Everybody appreciates a great meal in a unique location. So that's why I think either bringing them into your office, if you have a nice boardroom, get it nicely catered, provide some refreshments, or invite them to a nice local restaurant. I think that works really well. Now, I always get asked around the size of venue. And so I think the venue that you decide on really depends on how large of a crowd you want to address. So, are you looking to speak in front of 50, 60 people, or do you want to create a more intimate gathering of maybe 10, 12, 15 people, so that you can hopefully create some meaningful connections. They say that 12 is the ideal group size, because it just gives you enough where people feel they're open to talk before they feel it's too large and they may start to clam up. But if you don't want to host a customer event or prospect event, in the playbook, I also include other sample scripting that your SDR could use, when they're calling into prospects, if there's a goal of them booking appointments for you. Because regardless of whether you're doing an event or not, it will be helpful to have someone dedicated into calling your dream list to help book those appointments, whether it's for you or for the MSP owner, the account manager, to get that co-managed line of business off the ground. So there's a couple of different perspectives on who should you be calling first? Who should you be targeting first when you're trying to make that first initial connection? My feeling here, and I'm open to debating this with anybody, is that your SDR should be focused on connecting with the internal IT director or that internal IT admin person first, to really begin socializing the idea of establishing a potential co-managed partnership. Because I think there's still going to be that perception that you're trying to take their job, you might be looking to get them fired. So if you kind of go over their head and direct it at the CEO first, they might feel threatened. So I think by first reaching out and trying to establish that relationship, that trust with the internal IT person, that IT director, I think that's a better way in. And then if there is interest, at that initial qualification meeting, that's where we need to bring in more of the key stakeholders. We bring in the CEO, the CFO alongside that internal IT department head and have everyone in attendance for that. So just looking at some sample scripting that you can include as part of your call campaign. Again, this is focused on trying to solicit interest in your MDR service. It's all in the playbook. So, some of the examples I'm going to be showing you in this section. It's going to be small print, small wording, but it's all in the playbook if you can't read it. But really, you'll see that these opening questions that I'm talking about really center around those purchasing triggers, those pain points that we talked about back in step 3. So one potential opening line, you can say something like, Mr. IT admin, with the increase in sophistication and prevalence of cyber threats today, we're finding that many of the larger organizations, they're discovering they're not as prepared as they would like to be when it comes to handling the onslaught of attacks that are coming their way. How equipped is your team when it comes to detecting and neutralizing cyber threats so that they don't negatively impact the productivity of the employees or the revenue generating capabilities of the business? Or another opening line approach could be focused around compliance. So you could say, Mr. IT admin, as a business operating in whatever industry, XY industry, your organization is required to abide by whatever the compliance regulation is that they have to abide by. And one of the primary requirements of this regulation is that you have to have a process in place for network and security log collection and aggregation, so that in the event maybe where you're audited or maybe you're facing a cyber attack or a cyber breach, you're able to demonstrate and prove that this log data can be relied upon in some sort of forensic investigation purposes, or you might face some punitive fines and increased scrutiny. So, a couple of questions here, how well equipped is your department, when it comes to the log correlation aggregation requirements set forth by whatever their compliance standard is? And then how confident are you that you're going to be able to quickly and efficiently demonstrate compliance should you be audited or face a breach? Or maybe you have been scouring the online job boards, you've been scouring LinkedIn, you've created a list of companies who are currently looking to hire new or additional cybersecurity staff. Again, great opportunities to call into those customers, offer an alternative for their consideration. So another potential opening line that you can use to kind of kickstart the conversation really centers around, Mr. IT admin, I see from LinkedIn that ABC company is looking to hire a new security analyst to join your IT team. How's that search going for you? Have you ever considered leveraging the services of an MSP in lieu of hiring new internal security or technical staff that you would then have to better manage. You could offload that hiring and management responsibility over to us, allow us to handle the security monitoring and management on behalf of your organization. Okay. And then as you are, talking, or as your SDR is talking, or the salesperson is there talking to the IT director, they're beginning to engage with them on the other line. Whether they are trying to invite them to an event or not, they're probably going to be hit with a whole lot of objections. So that's really what this next part of the bootcamp wants to focus on is, what are some of the different objections that you may hear? How can you prepare the right response to handle that objection? So I'm just going to be touching on a few because in the interest of time, but there is oodles and oodles of objection handling techniques and sample responses within the digital playbook. So the first list of objections that your sales team can likely anticipate hearing really center around, isn't co-management just a way for you to get your foot in the door? We want to keep our IT department and our employees. Are you trying to get me fired? Are you trying to take over my job? Are you trying to get somebody else fired? Are you trying to eliminate our department? And so your responses really need to be focused on, what you can do to dispel those myths that might be out there in the market, when it relates to that co-managed model. And again, the playbook has all sorts of sample responses to handling those objections. But what I wanted to do, again, kind of keeping with my MDR theme for today, is focus on some of the objections that you're going to hear when you're trying to promote maybe your MDR service or any type of security service. So you'll see that there's 10 listed here. And some of them I have multiple responses because there's, a couple of different ways you can handle it. Again, not talking about all of them today. It's all in the playbook. I'm just going to pick on a couple of the more prevalent ones that you can probably anticipate hearing. And one of those is probably our endpoint protection is sufficient. We're good with our EDR. We do not need anything like a managed detection and response. And you may even hear this if you have an advanced security program that has MDR in it, and you're trying to sell those to your traditional managed services clients. They may say, look, we have endpoint, endpoint's fine. We don't need anything else. So I have a couple of responses on how you can handle that. Again, the wording's small. Don't worry, it's all in the playbook. But basically, wanted to respond to the fact that applauding them that it's great that they do have an endpoint protection coverage for their employees' devices, but reminding them that their employees' devices are really only one component of the organization's environment, and the endpoint isn't always the infiltration point for the threat actor. There's a lot of other areas of the network that require security monitoring as well when it comes to data breach prevention purposes. And so as the organization's IT director, when an attack occurs on your network, you need to have the ability to recover and to recover quickly. And in order to do that, you have to have a good understanding around, what actions are needed to quickly neutralize the attack, what caused the attack to occur, what steps then need to be implemented to ensure that a breach like this doesn't happen again. And so this kind of storyline requires much more data from your environment than what you can get just from the endpoint. So if the IT director is only monitoring the employee's endpoints, they're not capturing the complete picture to help them understand how the attacker was actually able to get in and access the data. Because again, the endpoint, it's only one way for them to get in. There's several other ways that threat actors to get in. So in addition to collecting system logs from the employee's endpoints, logs also need to be collected from other areas of the organization's ecosystem, including the firewalls, the routers, the switches, cloud sources like Azure, AWS, Google, Salesforce, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to stitch together what really happened. And so with our MDR service, we can help to extend the endpoint protection coverage that you currently have in place, and we can provide you with this complete overview, which will not only help speed up any forensic investigation, should there need to be one, but it'll also help to get your employees and your business back up and running much more quickly. Or another response that you can give if you hear that objection, yeah, no, our endpoint is fine. We don't need anything like a managed detection response. We're good, thanks. Reminding them again that EDR is not MDR. Endpoint detection response is not managed detection response. EDR, fundamental piece of your security strategy, but it's only one piece of the overall security stack. And so reminding them when they're designing their overall organizational strategy, especially for a business of their size and for the industry that they're in, they want to implement the most comprehensive coverage that's available, and they want to put in as many hurdles as possible to make it as difficult as possible for the bad guys to get through. So looking at things like firewalls, endpoint protection, patch management, backup, MFA, email, spam protection, web filtering, end user security training, VPNs to encrypt the connections. All of those are the fundamentals, good cyber hygiene that have to be put in place. On an individual basis, each of these security pieces are not powerful enough on their own to kind of stop the bad guys from worming their way into the network. But once you kind of layer them in a combined effort, that's when you really increase the overall effectiveness in preventing access to your network and preventing attacks from happening. And then what an MDR solution does is it strengthens your defenses even more. It provides you with that heightened visibility because it's going to aggregate all that data that's being collected from all those other pieces of your security stack, and it's going to alert you to when there might be suspicious activity that has to be investigated, when something's really out of the norm. So without an MDR solution in place, working alongside your EDR, you may never know about that suspicious activity that's happening on your network. And then one day you wake up and all your organization's data is gone or money's been emptied from the account. So organizations of your size, especially one that resides in a regulatory industry, they need stronger protection coverage. They need increased visibility beyond what EDR can provide, because the earlier you can detect that kind of suspicious activity, the earlier that you can catch it, the less it's going to cost you and the less of the impact it's going to have on your business, and the quicker you're going to be able to recover. And so our MDR service is beneficial in helping you to fortify your existing security stack, right? Or maybe you get told as you're speaking to the internal IT person that, yeah, you know what, we're already looking at different SIM software products to implement internally. So we're already going down that path. And so this is fantastic news because it's really cut down on a lot of the education that you have to do. But this is where you can kind of start poking holes in their evaluation approach of the different SIM softwares that they might be looking at. So this is fantastic news, so great to hear. How is that search going so far? You know, how much have you budgeted for this? Because SIMs get to be pretty expensive due to the amount of data that gets collected and stored in the cloud. And the pricing for the SIMs can be unpredictable and fuzzy because how can you predict how many alerts are going to be coming into your SIM platform on a daily basis? A lot of the complex customer environments that we're seeing today, they're generating billions of alerts, and all of that data has to get processed. And so because of this, we're seeing a lot of SIM providers, they're being opportunistic and they're charging a lot of money for the data ingestion, and companies don't really have a choice but to pay for those ingestion costs. But with our MDR service, and this is true with Enable MDR, we charge $0. We don't charge at all for data ingestion and storage. We include it as part of our monthly fee, so we can provide you with a level of budget predictability when it comes to securing your investment, all right? Or maybe you're talking to the internal IT person and they tell you, yeah, we're already using somebody else. We're using another MDR service, or we've already partnered with another MSP. We're using that platform. They're helping with this, so we're good. So again, I love this response because the education's already done. They already recognize that they do need an MDR in place to better secure and protect their network. But now what you want to do is kind of really get an understanding of what does that relationship, what does that partnership, what does that service look like? And this is where we're going to get into, if you've attended any of Lewis Pope's MDR boot camps or maybe any sales boot camps, where we talk about kind of the little r response versus the big R response. So again, if you get that response, we're already using an MDR, we're already partnering with somebody else, That's great to hear, that you already understand the importance of MDR and why your organization requires it. Do you mind if I ask a few questions about the MDR service that you're currently using? Because I'm curious to hear what the incident response process is like. Like when a threat is detected in your environment, what happens next? You know, does that threat get passed over to you for your team to handle, or does the company that you've partnered with deal with the detections? And so really, depending on their answer, this is where the education is really going to start between what a lot of MDR services are, which is that little r response, meaning that they get the alert, they're monitoring, they get the alert, but then they pass it over to you, or they pass it over the IT team to handle, versus the big R response, where there's an internal SOC, there's a human element, and they handle it. So they're not throwing anything over the fence. So let's say that the IT director comes back with a response where they tell you that with their MDR service, when there's a threat that's detected, they get sent a ticket and the alert gets forwarded over to the internal IT team to handle. So the best type of response, if you hear this, you can tell them, all right, so just as you know, with our MDR service, we provide our customers with what we call the big R response versus what appears that you're describing as little r response. You know, are you aware as to how fast a vulnerability can move throughout your environment? You know, when a threat is detected by the system, time is your enemy. It needs to be neutralized, halted as quickly as possible, because it only takes minutes before your whole network and your important company data could be wiped out. So if your MDR service provider that you're using today sends you a ticket at 3 a.m. to warn you of an event that's happening in your environment, and you're sleeping, or the person responsible on your team to handle that is sleeping and they're not responding, you might be walking into a pretty serious situation when you get into work. Or what happens if the alert comes in over the weekend or during a holiday? It's Christmas Day, Thanksgiving. The quality of life of your staff may be compromised if your team is expected to really work around the clock, because they never know when these alerts might be thrown over the fence and sent over to them. So it's wonderful that you have an MDR service in place, but if it's only an alert factory where you are then responsible for dealing with the alerts as you get them, then that actually isn't very helpful, I don't think, to you and your team, because there's the risk that it may take some time before anyone on your team becomes available to address them. And then who knows what kind of damage may have occurred by then. So we encourage you to maybe let our MSP take over this function with our MDR service. And the difference is, with our service, we have a human intervention piece. We have a team working around the clock that's going to take the corrective actions on your behalf to stop any breaches before they actually occur. You know, we have a dedicated SOC and cybersecurity analyst that can augment your team, intervene to complete the actual security work for you, instead of just throwing over what's been detected over the fence and then telling you to deal with it. And so this will actually afford your team with a better work-life balance. It will afford your team improved operational efficiencies. It's going to allow your team to really focus on your primary activities and other strategic projects that you might be working on, instead of constantly being distracted with the alert tickets coming in. Or maybe the internal IT team tells you, or the director tells you, look, we already have dedicated security staff already, so we don't need the services of an MSP at this time. And so again, when you hear this, we want to kind of peel back the onion. We want to poke some holes in this. And we want to get an understanding around, what does their internal security team look like in reality? So our response can be, great. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions just to kind of gain an understanding of what this looks like for you? So trying to find out, you know, how many cyber specialists do they have working on the team? How many hours do they all work? Do they work a standard 8 to 5 shift, or do they run multiple shifts? You know, are they doing the overnight and weekend hours as well? Is there any feelings being expressed by the team where maybe the team is feeling a little bit overwhelmed or overworked? Because if so, this is where you can say, look, we can help create space for them. We can be their backup so that they can take holidays, vacation, personal time, sick days, and not have it impact the rest of the team or the organization. And then as your organization grows, scalability won't be an issue because our team can grow alongside your team. And so you want to ask these types of questions because it does take a minimum of 5 to 7 security analysts to run a 24/7/365 SOC. And that's assuming that no one ever gets sick or takes vacation. And this requirement is not based on the number of users. It's not based on the endpoints that the organization has, but it's just what's needed to maintain and run around the clock SOC, every day of every year. And when you look at a fully burdened security analysts, costs around 150,000 US per year, and that's probably on the low end. And if you're looking at Indeed or any other job site, and you're looking at how many open security analyst positions there actually are, it's something like 350,000 to 1, meaning that there's 350,000 open available security analyst positions for every one hire. So if the organization that you're speaking with, they have a SOC with security staff, then we really kind of want to dig a little bit deeper to find out what's the makeup of that staff. How is that department set up? Because, if they're only running 8x5, there's an opportunity here for you to support them, in the evenings, weekends, and holidays. Or maybe they're looking potentially, because if they're going to grow, they're going to want to expand their SOC. You can support them there too, because, where are they going to find the talent? Not very easily. Another objection that you may hear from the IT director is, look, you're just trying to make my team look bad. And from our CEO, or you're just trying to make us look incompetent, like we don't know what we're doing. And so a good response, a possible response that you can provide is, actually, no, we want to make you look knowledgeable and informed in front of your CEO. Our dashboard access, our response actions, they could be tailored on how involved or how hands-off that you and your team want to be or need to be. And then based on those requirements, we can customize the response plan to align to what makes the most sense for you. We can help set the rules of engagements together based on who's going to do what when a breach occurs. And, talk about how we pride ourselves on providing our customers with equitable access to all of the data. We have access to the data in the breach of attack, and you have access to the data in the breach in the event of a breach of attack. You also can complete your own validation on things that might be happening in your environment, and you have the authority to make your own decisions based on what the data is telling you. So the service that we are offering, it's not like a black box where you don't know what's going on. We can provide you with transparency, visibility, so that you can see what's happening and what is being done. So in the event of a breach, if your CEO comes looking to you for answers, you can log into the dashboard, you can see all the notes, you can see every single action that's been taken by our team in chronological order, so you can give the CEO the answers that they require. You're going to be kept up to date, you're going to be kept informed on what's transpiring. You're never going to be running blind. Our service allows you to trust, but verify, because you have access to all the data the same as we do. And then lastly, you'll probably might hear the objection, wow, this sounds like an expensive service. We don't have the budget for this. And so if you hear this, it may help just to review a simple ROI scenario to really get the IT director, the CEO to really understand, what are the true costs of a security breach and what the impact that breach can have on their business. And so by running through this illustration, they'll hopefully see that it will be cheaper in the long run to partner with you and enroll in your MDR service than it is to kind of pay out after the fact. And so you want to get the internal IT director to understand what the total cost of a security breach is, and that it's not just the ransomware payment that might need to be made if the team is not able to get all the data back. There's a lot of other intangibles that I've listed here that need to be factored into the equation as well. But even if the organization did pay the ransom, the unfortunate truth is that paying the ransom doesn't necessarily guarantee that the company is going to get all of their data back. They could pay the ransom and still not get their data back. So to start that ROI conversation begins with reviewing what the average ransomware payment currently is and it went up quite substantially between 22 and 2023. The 2023 average ransomware payment was reported to be about $1.54 million US. That was almost double. It was about 900,000 in 2022. So that's the number we start with. Then we have to add in the cost of the intangibles from there. And I can't really put a price on these because who knows what their end costs are going to be. But on top of the potential ransomware payment of $1.54 million, the organization we also have to factor in the cost of any regulatory fines that are levied, because depending on the industry, the organization could be assessed additional fines because they didn't take the proper precautions necessary to invest in the different measures that are needed to protect their customers' personal data. There's the cost of the external forensics, the cost of having to hire people to come in and do the forensics analysis to determine how did that breach occur, how are the bad guys able to get into the network, what can be done so that something like this doesn't happen again. There's also going to be the crisis communication costs. Something for like PCI, they say that for customers whose information is believed to have been compromised, they have to be notified in writing to be on alert for fraudulent charges. So these are additional costs that have to be considered and factored in. All the printing and the posting of customer letters, all the HR costs for handling the customer complaints afterwards. And that's keeping them from doing their normal, regular activities of their job. There could be attorney fees, there could be legal costs, if there's any class action lawsuits that are launched by their customers once they find out that their data has been lost or compromised or stolen. Higher insurance premiums, larger deductibles likely will be imposed post-attack. Consultancy costs, employee security training fees will likely need to be incurred to teach employees what to look for so they don't cause another breach. Infrastructure improvement projects may have to be done because ransomware attacks generally expose vulnerabilities in an organization's security infrastructure. And so that could lead to expensive upgrades, new technologies that are going to have to be implemented to boost the cybersecurity protection coverage. So it's more like, pay me now, pay me then type of thing. There could be collateral damage, could potentially impact and cause harm to the organizations that happen to be involved in that customer's supply chain. Then there is the risk of being attacked and threatened all over again and occurring these risks all over again. Because once the organization has been hit, they're on the bad guy's radar. And if the organization doesn't immediately make the investment to fix the underlying issues that caused the attack in the first place, they risk falling, getting attacked again. And then most definitely there's going to be reputational damage to their brand, and their business, and that could lead to loss of customer sales and loss of customers. And customers, upon hearing of the breach, they could lose faith in the business, take their business elsewhere, decrease in sales because, what other businesses, if they're not already a client and they hear that the business got breached, who's going to want to take their business over to them? So there could be some big reputational damage and it could be an extinction event for that. So when you tally all of this up, the potential breach as a result of an underprotected network or an unprotected network could easily reach $2 million US or more once you factor in all of those additional hard to calculate but very expensive intangible costs. And actually IBM, they did a study and they actually feel that the cost of the intangibles, not including the ransomware payment, actually amount to the tune of $4.62 million. And so when you kind of add these two together, the total breach cost could easily exceed $6 million. But when you compare that to what you would be charging on an annual basis for your MDR service, and last week when we talked about the MDR program, the recommended price came in at around $90 per user. For a 125 user organization, an MDR service would cost around $135,000 US per month, proving that it's definitely cheaper to prevent than to pay out. And so again, using this ROI perspective, you can then respond back to the IT director, the CEO, when they tell you that, this sounds a little expensive. You can say, look, With your current departmental and technological setup, I would hate to see your organization suffer a breach. Is the $90 per user that I'm charging per month for MDR service really that much more expensive than your organization suffering a potential breach that could cost you well north of $6 million? Or worst case, cost you your livelihood and the livelihood of the employees who depend on you. For an annual cost of $135,000, it isn't even possible to hire one qualified cybersecurity analyst for your organization. And to protect an organization like yourself, you would need anywhere from 5 to 7 analysts to provide kind of that around-the-clock security monitoring and protection coverage. So for $135,000 per year, you're actually gaining access to an entire team of around-the-clock security personnel, security monitoring, reporting, log correlation software. You're getting the people and the software, giving you the full power of a SOC and SIM at a fraction of the cost of building and implementing one on your own. And then we would be working alongside you every step of the way, supporting your security and your compliance requirements. All right, so again, just highlighting in this section, due to interest of time, some of the more common objections that you might hear, especially when you're trying to sell your MDR service. But again, a reminder, in that digital playbook, I've gone into much more detail, built out many more additional responses to a lot of the different common objections that your team may hear, not only for MDR, but for some of the other programs that you might be wanting to go to market with around patch, around backup, 365 backup. So if you are looking for more program-specific responses to those objections, make sure again that you scan to get your version of the playbook or download a copy of the playbook from the webinar handout section. And then lastly, step 7, it's all around setting your go-to-market goals. These are the specific targets that you're aiming to achieve within a defined, prescribed timeline to help you measure really how well is your go-to-market strategy working for co-managed or any other campaign that you might be working on. Because without having defined goals, it's going to be difficult to tell if the strategy is working. So I'm going to talk about 2 sets of goals for tracking your co-managed services. The first set is going to really help you track the success of your co-managed lunch and learn, that in-person event. The second set of KPIs is really going to be used to help track the overall success and growth of your co-managed business model. So looking at grouping 1, setting goals and objectives to track the success of a in-person event so that you can use them to really help improve the overall event experience for next time. KPI number 1, looking at your event registration versus your target. And so this is really based on the venue chosen, whether you're using a boardroom, a restaurant, a larger venue, and then setting the target number of companies that you would like to see attend your event, and then setting your registration target from there. So do you want to speak to a room again that has 50 to 100 prospects in it, or would you rather keep it intimate and more maybe quieter and speak to a room that maybe just has 15, 17, 20 prospects in it? Either case, it's going to be a good idea to set your event registration target about 15 to 20% higher than your attendance target so that you can account for the people that are going to register but not attend. And then KPI number 2, event attendance versus target. Based on the people that have registered, what percentage actually attended? And for those that had registered but didn't attend for whatever reason, this is where you really want to encourage your sales team to follow up with those companies immediately to see if a one-on-one meeting could be booked. Because always, life happens, things pop up. So if they were interested enough to register but they couldn't attend, make sure that someone's on your team is reaching out and getting that one-on-one booked. And then KPI number 3, looking at the effectiveness of our marketing, different marketing forms that we took, the different marketing tactics. So depending on what tactics you used, did you use email? Did your sales team reach out and do proactive calling? Did you do social posts? Did you do direct mail cards? Which method worked the best to get the highest number of registrations? And then what method didn't work all that well at generating registrations? Because you're going to want to make sure that we're tracking that so that the next time we are promoting our event, we can use the pieces that work the best for us. KPI number 4, looking at the number of sales qualified leads, so the SQLs that are generated versus our target objective. Looking at how many post-event initial discovery meetings do we want to book versus how many did we book? And then looking at the pipeline that have been able to be generated versus our target. So how many opportunities were created afterwards as a result of those post-event initial discovery meetings, meaning that after that initial call took place, that initial on-site meeting took place, how many follow-up meetings were scheduled after that? And then what's the revenue that was associated with those opportunities? Number 6, looking at the new customers that were acquired versus our target. How many net new co-managed clients were we hoping to sign on as a result of the event? And then number 7, how many ultimately did we close as a result of the event? So looking at what our close ratio was, looking at the event feedback survey that was received versus number of attendees. We want to make sure that we're trying to get as much feedback back as we can. Number 9, this is where we want to look at our customer acquisition costs per customer, because though the number of new customers acquired, it is an important KPI to track. To determine the overall event success, you also want to track the cost per customer acquired, because being aware of the amount of time, money, resources that were needed to close an event source deal, that's an essential indicator that we want to track because it can impact our bottom line. So here we want to track, the SDR, the sales time that was all spent proactively calling into the prospects. We want to account for marketing's time that was needed to create and manage the different marketing pieces, all the mailing costs if you did decide to mail some printed material out, obviously the cost of holding the event itself, all the time that went in afterwards to do all those follow-up meetings to kind of close the sales. We want to track all of that and then divide that by the number of new contract customers that we were able to achieve so that we can figure out how much it costs to acquire them. And then based on this, we would use this number to really make adjustments or improvements if needed for next time. So as an example, let's say that we determined the overall cost of the event with all of those different variables included came to about $20,000 US all in. And then through the work of your sales team over the next 90 days, you were able to sign 4 net new co-managed clients from that event. So your customer acquisition cost per event would be $5,000 each. And then extending that into KPI number 10, this is where you try to determine your event ROI. And so let's say now that each customer resulted in an average contract value of $2,500 per month. Annualized, this results in $30,000 each, which equals $120,000 in new total annualized MRR for your MSP just from this event. So to calculate the event ROI, all we need to do, all we want to do is then subtract the total cost of the event, which was $20,000, from the total annualized MRR, which was that we earned, which was our $120,000 in this case, then divide it by the total cost of the event. So the ROI for this event is 500% or 5 to 1. And according to demandjump.com, they actually say that an ROI of 500%, that's considered good. That's a really good benchmark for a marketing event ROI. And then lastly, KPI number 11, the event budget versus what actually was spent, because you do want to get an idea as to how realistic or unrealistic the budget was so that you can set a more realistic budget for next time, because maybe there's things that you missed or didn't account for, or maybe you overestimated your costs. Either way, still a good metric to track. And then looking at grouping number 2, setting goals, objectives to track kind of the overall success of your co-managed line of business. And it really starts with asking yourself, where do you want to see your co-managed business in the next 12 months? And these metrics are likely ones that you're already tracking for your traditional managed services line of business. We're just kind of flipping it to make it more of a co-managed type of focus, but looking at how many new co-managed clients do you want to sign on in the next 12 months? How much revenue growth do we want to generate over the next 12 months from our co-managed line of business? What's our average deal size? because we should always be tracking our average deal size for our contracts so we can see the type of business and the size of businesses that we are bringing on. And we should always be aiming to improve that. Looking at the different marketing campaigns that were performed to help build awareness and interest in our co-managed services offering. You know, what marketing tactics work the best to bring new co-managed clients into the business. And then what sales metrics are you going to track as you navigate those prospects through the sales funnel? You know, here we want to track the number of initial appointments, the number of follow-up appointments, how many maybe assessments that we might have to do, and then what is our close ratio as a result of that. So just in summary, a couple of keys to success. When it comes to talking about some keys to success as it relates to getting your co-managed services off the ground, first and foremost, and I feel bad for this poor dead horse, making sure that you do select the right type of customers to partner and do business with, because you want to make sure that they are a good fit for your MSP and for your business model. And so this means spending time working on your ideal client profile, really trying to define the right types of companies that you want to have as customers, and then making sure that you're communicating this to everyone on your team, and then be disciplined to adhering and sticking to this profile. Because it is okay to say no to a prospect if they don't line up to your target profile customer type. You know, because by saying no, what that's really doing, it's allowing you to free up time and start working on attracting businesses that you do want to do business with. And then making sure that your messaging is on point. You know, as you're creating your marketing messaging, as you're working on your sales messaging, make sure that you're speaking the right love language of the CEO or the CFO or the IT leadership that you're working on targeting. So looking at CEOs, CFOs, C-suites, what do they primarily care about? They care about profitability, growth, scalability, mitigating any of all exposure to risk, because risk can impede or inhibit growth for their organization. And then what does IT leadership care the most about? They care about being able to successfully complete important IT projects on time. They care about confidently and efficiently handling all the day-to-day stuff that needs to be done to properly care for their network infrastructure. They care about creating and maintaining a reliable and dependable network environment in order to keep their employees working and productive. They care about keeping their employee morale high, keeping their technical employees engaged and excited to come to work. They care about reducing employee technical churn and striving to keep their skilled technical talent that they do have engaged and excited again to come to work. They're concerned about creating a positive work-life balance so that their team isn't overwhelmed or overworked. And they too are also concerned about mitigating risk, mitigating their risk exposure, and doing what they can to keep their business and its critical data safe and secure. And so prior to any go-to-market strategy that you undertake, make sure that you also have the marketing basics in order. And I'm going to be talking about that in actually next week's set of boot camps on building your marketing strategy. So making sure that your website is up to date, making sure that it has the right messaging, the right verbiage that really works to promote your co-managed services, that you've articulated the benefits of your new services to larger organizations that might be coming to check out your website, making sure that you have updated your LinkedIn company and personal profiles, that your Google business profile has been updated to announce kind of the new direction or the new services that you're offering. Making sure that you've taken time to accumulate and collect the right amount of social proof so that you can use that in your marketing and sales efforts. You know, if you have 1 or 2 co-managed clients today and you happen to gain those clients organically, leverage that experience in those relationships to gather testimonials and client reviews. Use it to create sales case studies, highlight how you have helped their business. Ask them to go to your LinkedIn, go to your Google page and post a recommendation there that you can then take and then add to your website, because social proof is always going to be critical in helping you build success in any campaign, business building activity that you're trying to do. And if you don't have any co-managed clients today, then just gather as many reviews as you can from your existing clients in whatever vertical that you happen to be targeting that really speaks to your professionalism and your expertise, and document explicitly how you've helped their businesses. And, you know, make sure that you are building in a process around implementing a proactive sales outreach strategy, because all the marketing in the world is only going to do so much. You do need to create a proactive sales motion as well if this is something that you don't have in place already for your MSP, meaning that we do need to assign someone from the organization to start making phone calls into those companies that appear on your prospect list, whether you're inviting them to an event or you're just looking to book an appointment. Because according to global, to Deloitte and Touche, they say that global IT outsourcing, the spending by businesses is projected to reach 519 billion back in 2023. They found that that was a 22% increase over 2019 numbers. They find that IT services is making up 72% now of all global outsourcing contract values. And 83% of IT leaders are considering outsourcing their security efforts to MSPs because of budget cuts, staff reductions, and increased cyber threats. So the stats are there. Businesses are, and they're going to continue to want to outsource more and more of the IT and the cybersecurity to MSPs. And you want to do what you can to get some of that lucrative market for yourself. But it's something that we need to plan for. We need to be prepared in order so that we can capitalize on that. And that has really been kind of my ultimate goal with this two-part bootcamp series, you know, helping you find success in this new market opportunity. So now that this bootcamp series has wrapped up, what are some of the next steps? If you did miss part one, you can go and watch it on demand. Let me know. It's not there yet on Enable You, but I can send you the raw recording. Retake this bootcamp if you are interested. It will be posted in a couple of weeks, but again, let me know. I can send you the recording. If you haven't done so yet, download the Co-Managed Digital Playbook. I only touched on a small piece. Everything is in that digital playbook in much more granular detail. Don't forget to leverage Market Builder. Don't forget to leverage the co-managed event in a box. Plan those that in-person event. Plan that lunch and learn. Don't be scared. And any questions, work with your partner success manager. Register for my office hours. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me an email. Let me know where I can help. All right. So just one more moment before I let you go. Just want to get feedback on what you thought of today's boot camp. This really was a brand new boot camp. I redesigned it quite a bit since the first time around. So if everyone on the line wouldn't mind giving me some feedback there, that would be greatly appreciated. If you're looking to see something that I didn't quite touch on, let me know. If there was something that needs a little bit more clarification, let me know as well. Perfect, so appreciate all of that. And just a reminder, we pretty much have finished up all of the program development activities between traditional and co-managed. Now we're getting into how do we actually start filling the pipeline. So we're going to be talking about building your marketing strategy, building your telesales strategy for the month of June. So if you haven't had a chance to register for those upcoming boot camps yet, I have the QR code there. You can see the marketing ones are taking place June 6th and June 12th. And then July, August, we get into the sales process. So your marketing worked, you have some customers that want, or some prospects that want to speak with you. Now what? So that's taking place in the summer. All right. So thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to attend this latest boot camp. Again, my email address, LinkedIn is there if you want to reach out and connect. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out. So enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the rest of the week. Take care, everyone. Bye.